This is a Xiaomi Smart Band 10 in 2026, an infinitely popular budget fitness tracker that's got a 1.72-inch display, a ceramic body, and so many features you might find it hard to believe that it's only $40 or so. But fancy features aside, what you really want to know is, does the Smart Band 10 actually have built-in GPS? Is the heart rate tracking actually accurate this year? And what battery life can you actually expect in the real world? Let's find out. First, let's go ahead and rip the band-aid off. No, the Smart Band 10 does not have built-in GPS. If you want to go for a run without your phone and make use of GPS, you're going to need to upgrade to the Pro model, which is slightly more expensive. On this standard version, it's using connected GPS, which means it's piggybacking off your phone's location. Is that a deal breaker in 2026? Well, I'll touch more on that in the fitness and workout section. And I'm making you wait because I want to touch on the battery life first and tell you how long you can actually realistically expect from the Smart Band 10. Now, Xiaomi's claims are a little bit over-exaggerated. They're claiming 21 days, and I actually feel that you probably could reach that, but you'd have to not be using it at all. I'm going to work off heavy usage data, so using heavy workouts and going for long runs every single day. And I think your worst case scenario is between 5 to 10 days or 5 to 8 days if you're using always on display. And that is a worst case scenario. I think for a lot of people in normal usage, you'll actually probably be hitting more around the 13/14 days with this. Charging speeds are also fairly generous. You're going to be fully charged in around about an hour, meaning it's really going to require very little effort to keep this thing charged up. I can't imagine you're ever going to run out of battery on the Smart Band 10. It really is one of this fitness tracker's best features. Now, as I mentioned, battery life is of course going to depend on how you use it and what sort of health tracking you're using, which we should probably talk about. First observation is that the continuous heart rate tracking doesn't seem to be actually continuous. It's still taking your readings every minute or so. What does that mean? Well, that means you're going to get a more general outlook of your health and your heart rate specifically, rather than a super detailed graph. Now, this is really no bad thing because the Smart Band 10 is not marketed as medical grade life-saving equipment. But if you were to compare it to something like the Galaxy Watch Ultra, you'll notice the graphs from that are a lot more detailed and you get a lot more depth in those results. The reason I say it's no bad thing is because at the end of the day, once you get back from a run, you're still going to get a really good idea of your heart rate zones from when you're on a run, and really it won't make that much of a massive impact on the data you're using. What I will say though is that this lack of precision, and I want to emphasize that lack of precision doesn't mean that it's inaccurate, is echoed in the sleep tracking. If you compare it to, say, again, the Galaxy Watch Ultra for example, you're very much getting a smoothed out graph. Again, a general look as opposed to a detailed graph. And this is also echoed in things like steps tracking. I feel the Smart Band 10 is accurate, but it's a little bit more tentative and conservative when giving you steps in comparison to, say, a Galaxy Fit 3. This is kind of the running theme with the Smart Band 10, but it does still have a really impressive suite of features. You've got things like your SpO2, you've got your vitality score, you've even got stress tracking, which you will have to turn on. It really does offer a lot for not much money at all. On top of these features, you've got additional things like your breathing exercises to help you wind down a bit. But funny thing, the vibration motor on the Smart Band 10 is so strong that I think it actually stressed me out a little bit. So I actually had to go ahead and set it to weak. In comparison to, say, the Galaxy Fit 3, again, the vibration motor on the Xiaomi Smart Band 10 is so much better. You can really feel the difference. And actually, the vibration motor on the Galaxy Fit 3 is so weak that I'm not actually confident it would wake me up if I used it as an alarm. The Smart Band 10 is top tier for that. Workouts wise, it's again surprisingly impressive for such a cheap device. You've got a great selection of workout modes. I think there's over 150 to choose from now. And Xiaomi have also added their Pebble mode on the Smart Band 10, which I think is a really interesting feature. And what it lets you do is attach it to your foot or your trainer rather than your wrist. Now, this is great for getting more advanced metrics on, say, like your cadence for your running, but also, I think it kind of defeats the object of buying this because then obviously you're not going to get your heart rate reading. So I think that's a little bit of a weird one, and it almost makes you think, do I need to buy 2 of these to get the most out of it if that's what you want to use it for? One thing I will say that the Smart Band 10 doesn't do all that well, in my opinion, is automatic workouts. Now, in comparison again to other budget fitness trackers like the Galaxy Fit 3, the automatic workout detection on this isn't great. Again, it's a lot more tentative, more conservative, and it'll actually ask you, are you doing a workout, which sometimes can be a little bit annoying to have to set that off. The Galaxy Fit 3 very confidently does all of that sort of stuff for you. I also noticed the other day that I did set off a workout manually when I was doing a hike, and I actually forgot to turn it off, and it carried on going for nearly 8 hours. Usually other fitness trackers would probably turn themselves off by that point. It's not all bad though. Most of us won't have an issue with setting a workout off manually, and the results that you get and the data that you get after doing these workouts is pretty good. You get your calories, your distance walked, your steps, and much more, all on the Smart Band itself and also in the Mi Companion app, which we'll check out shortly. Before that though, one thing I did promise to discuss was GPS. Do you actually need it? And I think the short answer is no, but the accuracy is going to depend on what type of phone you have. I've got an S25 Ultra, which is pretty industry leading and flagship in that sense. But despite that, one thing I did notice the other day was I kept getting notifications about the Smart Band 10 not receiving GPS signal. Despite this, I don't see this as a major concern, because with any device, you're going to be losing your GPS signal every now and then, especially in heavily wooded areas. But it was quite annoying to keep getting those notifications, because again, the vibration motor on this is so strong, it kind of took me out of my zen. But just something to bear in mind, I definitely don't see this on other fitness trackers that I've been testing with connected GPS. Anyway, speaking of phones, the Smart Band 10 does come with a fair few handy features, and it's also missing a few. The first one is the Find My Phone feature, which works really great at a decent range, does exactly what it says on the tin. The other thing it's got is media control, so you can control anything that's going on your phone. You can pause, play, and skip music. It's extremely basic and simple. There's no thumbnails, but you can see what is playing in the text in the top corner. You also get a camera shutter control, which just adds a little bit of extra utility to the fitness tracker, as does things like the flashlight and even the compass. You also get a few other things like the Pomodoro clock for focusing, a task list, weather tile, and then a stopwatch as well. It is, however, missing NFC, unless you live in mainland China, because that version does actually have NFC. But the global version, which most of us are going to be looking at, does not have built-in NFC. That's not too much of a deal breaker, and other competitors don't tend to include that. But what it does mean is you can't take this out and use it for making payments, and you can't connect to gym equipment. I will say though, in general, for the price, the Smart Band 10 is pretty well equipped, and I'll take this moment to continue on and talk about HyperOS 2.0. It's weirdly not feeling that drastically different to when I reviewed the Smart Band 5 several years ago. It just feels a little bit more fluid, a bit more refreshed, and very familiar. The other side to all this, of course, though, is the Mi Fit Companion app. Now, I'll be honest, I don't love it, but I have to concede here, it has had massive improvements. It's looking a lot less cluttered, although I still think it looks cluttered in comparison to, say, Samsung Health. And they've also cut down on some of the unnecessary ads that used to be knocking around in the app. I'm still finding it a little bit difficult to navigate, but it's looking much more streamlined and polished than it used to. One thing I have to admit that HyperOS does bring with it is a really great selection of watch faces. In comparison, again, to the likes of the Galaxy Fit 3, Xiaomi are definitely superior in this aspect. There's so much more customization options, and there's a really diverse selection, so there's definitely something for everyone there. And I'll use this point to bring up a really great side note about the Smart Band 10. Because it is so popular, you've actually got a really great selection of third-party watch straps. So if you want to take that customization one step further, you definitely can. There's so many options out there. I think I bought this one for just $7. I'll put a link in the description in the pinned comment if you want to get this one for yourself. But there's some really great options out there to really transform the overall look of the Smart Band 10. And in some cases, you can actually bring it from looking like a basic budget fitness tracker to something that actually looks pretty posh. Whilst you're playing with all these features though, of course, you are going to be staring at the Smart Band 10's 1.72-inch display, which is actually pretty big for a fitness tracker and beats a lot of its competitors. But being mainly a Galaxy Watch Ultra user, it doesn't feel that way to me. Also, I'm not completely convinced on this pill-shaped design. I think I much prefer the larger, more rectangular displays like the Galaxy Fit 3 and the Pro version. Anyway, back to the display. Outside, you should definitely be able to cope. It's got 1500 nits of brightness, certainly not industry leading, but you shouldn't find yourself struggling all that much, only on exceptionally sunny days. You also get a 60 Hz refresh rate, which I think is really contributing to the overall fluidity of the operating system in comparison to some of the older models. Anyway, talking about that pill-shaped design, I think we should also talk about the overall comfort of wearing this day in, day out, and especially for things like workouts. I can't give it 10 out of 10 for comfort. It's not uncomfortable by any means, but I just think the pill-shaped design on this does sit a little bit funny on your wrist. What I will say is, for those of you who have got very tiny wrists, I do think despite it having a larger display, it's absolutely fine. My wrists have all but disintegrated since starting running. It's just one of the things that happens, and I found it to be fine. One thing I will say though is getting a third-party strap might be absolutely essential for some of you. These stretchy ones really do offer a little bit more flexibility than the standard one that comes with it. It is worth noting that if you are planning on bashing this around a bit and taking it out and about, that this does have 5 ATM waterproofing, so that means you can take it out in the rain, you can shower with it, and you can even swim with it as long as you don't go too deep. Now, if you've made it this far in the review, there is one big hurdle you still need to get over, and that is compatibility. Will the Smart Band 10 work with iPhone, and will the Smart Band 10 work with non-Xiaomi Android phones? Thankfully, this is where the Smart Band 10 really does shine in comparison to its competitors. It will work really well with other Android phones, but it will also work well with Apple phones. Now, I briefly just spoke about competitors, so let's just take a quick look at the direct competition to the Smart Band 10 and see if there's any better value options out there for you. The first one that I'd recommend looking at is the Xiaomi Smart Band 8 Pro, the Smart Band 10's big brother, if you like. It retails for between $60 to $70, so a fair bit more expensive, but it does have built-in GPS at the expense of battery life. You will get a max of 14 days of battery life out of this one, but in reality, it's going to be more around the 3 to 5 day mark if you're using it heavily. Next, we've got the Huawei Band 9, retails for between $40 to $60, has 14 days of stated battery life, no GPS, 1.47-inch display. Basically, everything is worse than the Smart Band 10, including the display size, so not one that I personally consider. We've then got the Honor Band 9, which retails for between $40 to $60. It's got 14 days of stated battery life and no GPS, slightly larger than the Huawei Band 9, coming in at 1.57 inches on the display size. But again, in my opinion, it's really not competing with the Smart Band 10 when you take into account the price. We've also got a really interesting one, the Galaxy Fit 3, which is a touch more expensive, generally around the $50 mark, but it does have that rectangular display, which for me is a little bit more comfortable and a little bit more practical. It's also got superior software in my opinion, but it does fall short in the battery life section. What we can deduce from that list though is that the Smart Band 10 sits in a really good place in comparison to some of its direct competitors, and actually for the price you get a seriously good feature set. So should you buy a Smart Band 10 in 2026? Well, look, there's a few things that I don't love about it, mainly the pill-shaped design, but in general I think it's an extremely well-equipped fitness tracker at a very competitive price point, and actually has an amazing ecosystem which seems to have come a long way over the years. It's at the top of the list for battery life, it's got over 150 workouts, and it gives you little slivers of a smartwatch experience. In a nutshell, although it hasn't quite got the detailed tracking of some of the elite flagship smartwatches, if you want something for general health tracking that's not going to break the bank, I think this is pretty much one of your only options, but you should definitely consider the Galaxy Fit 3 as well, which just offers a completely different experience in my opinion. So you can check out my comparison of the Smart Band 10 and the Galaxy Fit 3 in the top left or right hand corner now. See you in the next one.